Hey, yo, what's up, everybody? Dan Tom here from the Protect Your Neck podcast. Might see me from places like MMAJunkie.com or Action Network. Of course, I always feel like Troy McClure. Shout out to OG Simpsons fans when I say that. But of course, on this podcast, on our kind of slightly different iterations, we go back in history. I got to have a co-host for this stuff. I don't even know what we're calling this. I guess we're calling it the MMA Rewind. I can't speak. Why not? I haven't even started drinking yet, so that's a good start. But I got my man at Brad Taschuk back with me, Brad Taschuk, of course, co-hostess or hostess, depending if Mr. Official shows up, of the MMA Analysis podcast. What is up, Brad?
Not too much. I thought you said at first, shout out to OJ Simpson fans, not OG Simpsons fans. But, there's some of those hanging around still. But always a pleasure to be back with you, Dan. I'm sure we're going to have some fun letting the people know the violence that we're imbibing tonight along with our beers.
Yeah, absolutely. We like to go back on cards, and it might feel like we're going to the well. We'll get to that with the Wayback Machine as far as the time period this fight card takes place. Of course, we're going to be doing UFC Fight Night 16, which is an early one, but better known as UFC Fight for the Troops. We'll get into that and that whole kind of, militaristic era iteration that the UFC, we see other organizations like now Bellator kind of following suit. So we'll talk about that in the setup here just shortly. But of course, these rewind episodes, however you want to put it, it's just kind of a fun thing to do. If you're like me, even when I'm a fan of the topic and the podcast and the people, whenever other people put out products like this, like I never go back to listen. I think you guys have done some fun WEC, like OG Halloween ones on your podcast, Brad. And I listen to it because it's good stuff and I like you guys. But, I don't go back and queue it up. So you don't have to. But we will try to include the timestamps here for you so you can watch along and kind of maximize the commentary. Make sense?
Makes sense to me. I hope it makes sense to the listeners as well.
I hope it is too, because I'm waiting for an answer before I get started. And in the meantime, I want to crack this open. Cheers to you listeners on the audio versions. Brad's already gotten started. It's a heavy sports day over there up north. And my hipster clearly ass who wakes up late on the West Coast where we're already behind and I don't really follow sports. So maybe it doesn't matter as much for me because I'm just like an MMA nerd these days because that's my job, Brad. But yeah, man, it's all good because it's beer time. It's fun time. And that's what this is for, man. It's a little – and we talked about this last time, Brad, and I know, I'm preaching to the choir here, so I don't want to wax too much on this. But yes – especially for us older fans, right? Even though we enjoy the gambling part too, so don't get me wrong, the UFC breakneck schedule is great if you like gambling on fights every weekend, right? Like I'm not hating on that. There's no shame in that. But even us degenerates, right, Brad? Everything kind of starts to blend, in the uniform era, the Apex era now that we're in. And it's good to kind of revisit and reflect. The sport doesn't do enough of that, There's barely any, legends when you look through like UFC cards these days. I think the whole month of June we've got Arlovsky and Miller on a Fight Night card, and then we've got Oliveira and Amanda Nunes on a pay-per-view. And those are like the only names that qualify for notable vet, higher up, elite, legacy, anything like that.
I mean,
literally
we're about to watch one of them right now. Not right now. We'll get to that in a second, folks. But about to watch old Jimmy Miller-son stepping into the fight for the troops. But it's fitting that we're doing this card on this day. I know we don't like to timestamp things too much, but we are recording this on Memorial Day, of course. Big
totally planned.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, we run a tight ship here. That's how we figured this out. But as you said, big sports day for my people, the lacrosse folks. Nobody else cares about it, but we'll get to some fights. And it's interesting that you bring up the genericity. I don't know. There's got to be a word for that. It's better than what I'm saying. Because Mick Maynard was on the old Twitter machine talking about like, oh, what was the last card that was bad? And my reply, I just did the old quote tweet because I don't need to get into Mick Maynard's mentions. But I said, honestly, I couldn't tell you because I can't tell one card from the other 90% of them that are the exact fucking same these days.
That was like such a and that's the funny thing is, like, that's like a very like that was very a mild criticism from you, and a very fair one overall, which is the crazy part. Like, you weren't saying anything wild. It's not like you're like just quote tweeting to like dunk on Mick or do that whole like Twitter engagement BS. Like, no, you were just like straight up like, dude, let's be real here. Like,
I couldn't tell you. Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, I thought about getting into it. I had my own critique just because it made me think about the schedule, and I realized we're going 12 weeks straight, and the one break that they had in there, which would have been perfect for them because it sets up their international fight week, allows them to build up for that whole big week. Like, no, you know what? We need another middleweight headliner with Sean Strickland. Shouts to the guy, trains at my gym, and I train there, so I signed the waiver so they can beat me up anytime, folks. But yeah, not to timestamp too much. We get a lot of that, and some of these cards, as we go back, getting us back on track here, we will find out that maybe they aren't as good as we like to champion. Maybe we're turning into those old men going, these kids don't know music these days, Brad. And we'll be honest with that at the end, right? We'll be honest, where these cards hold up. So there'll be ones that maybe, we're like, hey, you know what? Look, Joe Silva, he opened this with a middleweight too. Maybe I shouldn't criticize the matchmakers, although they opened this one with a lightweight. Joe Silva era, surprise, surprise. Jim Miller-san, surprise,
Fight
surprise.
of the night.
Yeah. Like, but yeah, that was funny though with the McMainer thing. Real quick, I was like, he must not read my columns, Brad, because people that know me and read my columns, I literally trash them every week, and I pretty much call for Joe Silva to come back to at least format the cards for us again.
Yeah.
Because
it would be wonderful. And, even another thing, like, as we mentioned, Memorial Day today for the folks in the States, they used to do massive cards on Memorial Day, like that all heavyweight main card. Chuck Rampage was on Memorial Day. There's, I'm sure, a ton of other
Ill
Rampage.
Will, Sean Shirk, and
Ill Will. Wasn't
John Jones,
Rampage
John Jones,
Evans.
Anthony Johnson, right? And then it was something else, but it was like Cormier or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I think Rampage and Rashad was on Memorial Day. Like,
great call.
It used to be a huge weekend, and there wasn't even a card this weekend.
Yeah, and I remember it because like my stepdad's birthday's on Memorial Day, and he's also a veteran. Somehow survived 5 tours in Vietnam as Special Forces. I don't know how he did it, but he's kind of here today. So shouts to my stepdad. Stepdad. But like, he loves he's like old school. He knew who Matt Hughes was and Liddell, right? And even later, like he actually became familiar as I was speaking on the Fox shows with like Demetrius Johnson. Just because they threw him on Fox a lot. And he was like, he'd never seen a guy that fast in his life. And he thought it was cool, right? So I used to remember, like, he'd be like, all right, what's the birthday card this weekend? Because he was spoiled, right? For someone, if your birthday was on Memorial Day weekend and you're a UFC fan, to Brad's point, you were getting the treatment. And now they don't even really care. Like, they're hitting it hard for, like, the first half of the year, as, like, I tweeted out. But now they'll kind of lighten the load, which is fine, like to lay off the holidays. Because remember, they would do like big New Year's shows, Overeem and Brock. They don't even try to do that anymore. Super Bowl, they're like we just got a check from ESPN. Like we don't have to celebrate holidays. We are atheists now. We don't care about walkouts. We don't care about uniforms. But we will do our best.
We care about walkouts. You better not bring that Palestinian flag with you, Bilal Muhammad. But
that's true. That's true. And then the Chinese one that they snatched from Li Jingliang, when they snatched like his necklace off of his, like the guy grabbed it so violently, like Li was like, can I at least have my bracelet back? Yeah. We are in a we don't do woke stuff or whatever they said. But this was a different era where like UFC had to bringing it back around. This is December 2008. So last time we did UFC Fight Night 13, one of my favorite fight nights. I think we agreed that it still aged well and it had some very key moments, from Joe Rogan, trigger warning with the R word, Joe Rogan's epic rape choke call. We had the in the crowd that we discovered the Ronda Rousey guys shadowboxing gif. And that took place in April of 2008. This card, Fight for the Troops 1, took place in December 2008. So as far as the way back machine, not too much to set up. Bedazzled jeans are still in an affliction. It's still all in fashion, right, Brad? At this time,
They were the style. I would never say that they were in fashion, but
Yes, yeah,
certainly people were
yes.
wearing them.
They were, man. They were like, unless you were like walking out like, like in Randy Couture's corner for like Tub Sylvia or whatever, like Affliction, like deck out series they would do for the fight. Like, unless you were a corner guy, like you saw guys dressed up as the corner guys were like the biggest posers, and that was like club attire for like beer belly 40-year-old men. I got to be careful between my age and the size of my fluctuating belly. I got to be careful with that. But yes, those were the kind of dudes who were rocking it. To Brad's point, not necessarily in fashion, but being worn technically.
But there were a couple things that changed since the last card that we did. So
Okay,
I
yeah,
think that one was just prior to GSP getting the welterweight title back from Matt Serra,
that's
and this
right.
one happened just after Brock Lesnar became the heavyweight champion of the world. So this
Hence
was
the
a
golden era we talk about.
hot period for the
Mhm.
UFC.
Yeah, this is the golden era we talk about, and Brock, as the name dropped there by Brad, it's a big name for it, whether you like it or not. He really brought attention, and
Mm-hmm.
now people were. This is kind of the beginning of people getting mad too that that didn't understand the history and how that we parallel much closer to pro wrestling than, like I said in my last top five with Drake, we parallel much closer to pro wrestling, right? And shout out to also my guy Sam Yang. I've been trying to pump out his article and give it shouts. But yeah, we come closer to pro wrestling than anything. And not to timestamp this episode, it's just ironic, Brad, because now they are owned by the same company, UFC and WWE under the same roof. So that's probably just pisses people off more. But yes, we are in that golden era. There's a lot of crossover audiences, and the UFC is trying to get out there, not just with crossover between, you'll see it with wrestlers. You will see maybe a year or so after this, we'll get Tough 10, I believe, Brad, right? Where they're really trying to push the NFL crossover, which they still haven't let go, as we know, that whenever we get guys, even if, no matter who they are, Greg Hardy or whoever, we got to act like the next coming. UFC, this is this era where they're really throwing darts and really trying to get their name out there. Um, and it's funny, you kind of see them doing stuff that, not to timestamp it too much, we see Bellator doing now, right? I go out to those Bellator Hawaii shows, Brad, and they do a lot of military. In fact, the reason why they do two shows is because that first one is kind of catering to the military, kind of like what the UFC does here for UFC Fight for the Troops one, again, like we said off the top of the show. Technically, it's UFC Fight Night 16 if we're following that chronological order. I gave you the numbers as far as the date goes a second ago. But that's kind of where we are with this one, and they're working with, of course. And I haven't heard this in a while, right? And I just checked, and apparently, the Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund, who they mainly do brain TBI specialties. They appear to be up and running from what I look, but I haven't seen. And Brad, correct me if I'm wrong. And obviously, people in the comments here at or hit me up at Dan Tom MMA or in the comments on YouTube. I really haven't seen anything since their last fight for the troops, which was like almost a decade ago. I want to say, and yeah, I don't know if that's because like maybe like the lawyers were Brad, where they were like, if we want to have a chance of pleading ignorance for all the future independent contractors coming to us with brain damage cases for the coming years, we should probably part ways. I don't know if that the Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund actually started producing results in their studies, and they were like, we better get away from this. We want to claim willful ignorance.
I'm surprised they must have signed like a a 3 card deal. I'm
Yeah.
surprised that after this one they kept it going, because this, as we'll get to, folks, was a violent card in many different ways.
It was, I don't know who to quote. I don't know if this is and it was somebody who they said it off record, but I want to say it was either a Mark Ratner, we had him in Junkie Studios, or perhaps like an Ant Evans character on Twitter, right? Not character. He works obviously with the UFC, but he's got plenty ties and is a resource as far as that side of the fence goes. But I don't want to misquote anybody here, but I believe it was somewhere in that orbit. But someone said that, like, yeah, a lot of UFC brass, including Joe Silva, cited this as one of the most violent cards they did in history. To my anecdotal memory, and of course, my memory is very biased at this time, not just because it's the golden era, but it's probably the peak of like people like me and Brad, for example, our fandom, right? So there's a little bit of bias there, but this was a violent card to my memory, Brad. Do you have any memory of this one? Did you watch it live? Or where do you come in before we rewatch here?
Did watch it live, definitely.
Okay.
But as you said, this is we're going on almost 15 years now away from this. So we were chatting before we started recording here, and I made the same mistake that you did, where I thought this was the one that they actually held in the hangar.
Yeah.
But it turns out this is in an actual arena in Charlotte or something like that, Fayetteville, North
Yep.
Carolina. I assume that's the same thing. I don't know where cities are in North Carolina, but yeah, obviously the memory has faded a little bit as far as the atmosphere of the fight, because you think of Fight for the Troops and you think of that sort of like iconic ring surround or octagon surrounded by the actual service members. This was not quite that, but certainly it had a different atmosphere than your typical UFC Fight Night.
Yeah, it certainly did. And they were pretty good about getting people with military experience. For example, we're going to actually start with something on the prelims, folks. So, of course, if you go to UFC Fight Pass to follow along, that's what we're going to be using. And UFC Fight Pass, when you pull up, as Brad said, if you type in troops, and this is UFC Fight for the Troops 1, that's the fastest way. But it'll be Josh Koscheck, Yoshida as the picture more than likely. They headline this card. But the main card, air quotes, offering that UFC Fight Pass offers, it's an hour and 43 minutes. We're about to start here in a second, but it's also going to include Luigi Fioravanti versus Brody Faber, which is fine, but Ben Saunders versus Brandon Wolf, which is good. This was another violent fight. It does not include I guess, spoiler alert, one of the first of graphic injuries that we're going to see in the UFC, which is this very card. So historical significance number one, right? Numero uno. So we're going to start there. Me and Brad are already queued up. This one, again, you don't have to type in troops for this one. This one, you're going to type in something separate. Then we'll go to the actual air quotes main card offering. Just type in Corey Hill or Corey Hill versus Dale Hart. That's HARTT. Go click on their fight. Fast forward through the walkouts. I believe Dale Hart has the military background. He comes out with some Ranger up gear. They like to do. They like to book these with at least one of the sides, the A side, the B side, the blue corner, the red corner. At least one with some military experience there. Fast forward it to 6 minutes and 10 seconds. It's the tail of the tape. That's where me and Brad are linked up, and it's okay if it's not exact. It's totally cool. But Brad, I'm going to ready my remote here if you want to ready your trigger finger. And we'll count off for the folks at home. We're going to start off with this fight here between Dale Hart and Corey Hill, and we'll chat during and after. Okay, so we're both at 6:10, and I'm going to count down from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. All right, tail of the tape is rolling in. Still, the graphic is up as we are already played, and it fades out. You're the same spot as me, Brad, so we're going. We got Bruce Buffer. Look at Bruce. He's only a two-tone with a pocket square. That seems naked for Bruce, but that's he was much more plain back then. He looks good.
It's an even salt and pepper mix at this point for Bruce still. More, not more salt than pepper as it is today.
Dale Hart wearing some toe-to-toe brand shorts. And I just bring that up. It's not the most popular brand, but I feel like every time I've seen toe-to-toe in the last 10 years, it's worn out and ragged. So to see it in like brand new condition looks funny. Again, 2008.
I was going to say the military guys in the front row cheering for Dale Hart. I assume They announced that he was a former service member in the intro.
Yeah, and there are probably other differentiating factors we don't have to get into. We'll just say MMA. But Corey Hill, by the way, I thought he was 6'3", which was already tall for a lightweight. 6'4", according to that graphic there. And again, not to spoil it, but I have a theory on these types of injuries, Brad. Not only do they usually occur in lighter weights, although we see it happen more notably at middleweight a couple years after this, but usually long, lanky, skinny fighters, right?
Yep.
One of the few scenarios where we're glad we're not tall. Nice leg kicks by Corey Hill.
Yeah, Dale Hart starts with the sneak attack to the nuts. Good military tactics there. Maybe he took some Krav Maga classes.
They joke and say everybody gets one, but maybe in this era, Brad, it was like everybody gets 3. Like refs did not want to take points. You know what I'm saying? Like they were way more. Everyone complains now. I believe they were way more reluctant back then, or is that just selective memory?
I feel like there was more of an anything goes kind of mentality there.
Yeah,
Corey
they were
Hill
still learning with
actually
us.
some decent clinch wrestling to get the takedown there. Couldn't really hold position, but
Yeah,
I
especially in transition for a tall guy, right?
and there's something you don't see every day. The Aljo pulled one of those off a few years ago. The
With
arm
Stefan
triangle from the
Mizugaki.
bottom. Yeah,
Yep. Dale Hart just went for that on Corey Hill. But yeah, I haven't watched Corey Hill fight in a minute. You know, I think I watched a bit of that Tough series he was on, but you just hear BJ screaming be first" the whole time. I don't think I really took in too much of the fighting.
and Corey Hill barking at people, of course.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, that too.
That's what that is the second thing that I remember about him. We'll get to the first in about 3 minutes and 40 seconds of fight time, folks.
That's true. Yep. Hey, speaking of Tough, there was a lot to contend with, and I was about to say Monster Lobster, and you actually see a Monster Lobster sponsorship on Corey Hill. How about that? Tough competitors sponsoring each other after the fact. Pretty cool, huh? Monster Lobster.
Solidarity, the brotherhood is strong.
Yeah, and I believe
Different brotherhood. Sorry.
I believe the guy Monster Lobster. I don't know the fighter's name, but I saw him at when I was at Matt Favola's Contender Series fight live at the old Tough Gym in 2018. He was part of the
Alan.
Favola contingent.
It's Alan something for sure.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And I know Frivola will go down to Florida too, like a lot of New Yorkers. I know we're talking about random things now, and they're back up on the feet, throwing kicks at each other.
Now I got to look this up. Alan Berube? Is that right? There you go.
That is, yeah. I think everybody just preferred to call him Monster Lobster. You barely ever heard his name spoken.
It's a shame that Matt Serra wasn't that guy's coach. That would have been, whew, that would have been some cornering right there.
Oh, that would have been epic. By the way, the toe to toe shorts that it's like a blue, red, and yellow. It looks like a circus tent, doesn't it? Like a clown shorts or something that Dale Hart's wearing. Like I just hear in my head. Sorry.
Well, he's certainly making a show of trying to close the distance in this fight. So you got that going for you.
Yeah, they are definitely getting into their a bit of a leg kick battle, which shouldn't surprise anybody who knows the result of this fight. I guess bit fortuitous.
It's MMA is a wild sport that there can be two physiques that are this different that fight in the same weight class. It's just crazy. Nothing like it, folks.
Yeah, I'm really impressed. Corey Hill gets another takedown with his level change, and again, like tall guys being able to wrestle like this. It's not very common. Hence why guys like John Jones, when they actually know how to wrestle, can wreak havoc, especially in bigger, taller divisions or larger divisions. But I will say, classic MMA Brad. He's got the reach and feints the jab, doesn't use the jab, and Corey Hill just keeps closing distance anytime he can, even though he's clearly has the longest range out of anybody in the division.
And it's not even like the leverage takedowns that he's getting. They're just like straight shots. It's like John Jones used to be, get those trips in the clinches and stuff like that, kind of tricky things. These are just straight up takedowns. Like just nothing going on there as far as
I mean, maybe that's just how he fights. Obviously, we haven't brushed up on our Corey Hill footage. Forgive us, folks. No disrespect to the man. But it is just kind of ironic we're pointing out that the tallest guy in the division is fighting like a smaller fighter, like a Frankie Edgar. Who was supposed to be on this card, by the way. Frankie Edgar and Brian Stan, both initially scheduled for this card.
The Frankie Edgar dropout switched for Jim Miller. That one works out pretty well.
That one works
Brian
out well.
Stan one, we'll get there.
We'll get to that. That adds to the violent night for sure. But for us, round one's over. But for us WEC fans, that was a continuation of their series. Obviously, Cantwell and Stan. Stan was kind of the guy, over in WEC who just looked like it was like their baby face that wasn't going to get beat. And Cantwell kind of came out of nowhere, and they were going to rematch in this. Of course, it did not quite happen at this night. That is.
Nope. That was very, very clearly a Corey Hill round. A couple almost close submission attempts from Hart from the bottom, but not much else going on from there. And he's huffing pretty good after the first 5 minutes.
I'm looking at the back of Media Row. But my favorite thing, like I said on the last things of these, Brad, I love looking at the side, like Dana White's talking to some advertiser guys right now. You see him in the corner. He's not even he's not even up at cage side. He's schmoozing advertisers because again, they had to try back then. Like,
was that Monster Lobster in Corey Hill's corner?
That makes even more sense. That actually makes more sense. Yeah,
I think it was. Anyway, focus up.
Yeah, I know.
Tunnel vision here.
Oh, another leg kick. Oh! Oh!
I didn't realize the fight went on so long after that.
Going. Yeah, and he was a bad bet back too. Oh! It was worse looking than the Anderson Silva one, man. That was worse than the Anderson Silva one. Oh my God, the whole thing was worse than the Anderson Silva one. Oh my God.
Oh.
Of course, we're referencing a shin snap if you didn't know the result and get what we were hinting at already, folks. First one in UFC industry, first one in any kind of mainstream MMA organization. Feel free to correct me. Definitely the first in the UFC. This is before Anderson and Weidman, folks. Holy crap. Joe Silva's still going in there and shaking the hand. Like Dale Hart's like, what just happened? He's like freaking out. Like, he's like, why are you shaking my hand? What just happened? Like, I couldn't read his lips. He was freaking out.
And I think he was like, did I just win? And they've cut a whole bunch of the fight out as you might expect.
Yeah.
Because the aftermath of that took a little while to get him stable and out of the cage. But, man, I did not remember at all that fight went on that long. I'm going to have to listen to the interview here.
Yeah, turn it up a little bit. Yeah, you're good. I'm listening through yours. Well, to be honest with you, Corey, we got weight together. We've been talking the whole time, man, and Corey's awesome, dude. And I want it in every state of my heart, but I don't want to see him like this, man. Well, this is just an unfortunate freak accident. Take a look at the big screen. We're going to show it to you right now.
Oh, do they actually show it?
They're going to replay this, too. Jesus.
Oh!
Every part of this is worse than the Anderson Silva one. That's all I can explain, right? Like the flailing of the leg and
the... I remembered it being stopped immediately. I did not remember the fight going on for another 10 seconds after that happened.
After he fell and folded back on him. Like, it was...
Well, he didn't even Hill didn't react until the fight was stopped and he looked down at it. And then he did the shock thing. But man, adrenaline is a hell of a drug. That's wow.
Wow.
That'll wake you up in the morning.
See Dana on his feet walking around in the background. I always pay attention to what's going on in the background on these shows. Mark Randerson, everybody must have been in shock. Like, geez.
Oh. Wow.
Oh my God! All right, that's over. Let's as we digest that, I'm gonna start queuing up again. Go to Toops on UFC Fight Pass. I know it's a stirring transition there. My goodness.
Yeah, folks. As Dan said, type in Troop or Troops on UFC Fight Pass. Go down to playlists, and you've got the full fight card right there. So a little bit quicker than typing in the whole thing because. For some reason, UFC Fight Pass still uses the exact same interface that UFC.tv did back in the day.
Absolutely. Wow. All right. I'm going to give you guys a couple seconds to do that. Brad, are you there? I'm just going to be playing from the very beginning on play for this.
Yes, I'm on 1 second.
Okay. So. Cool. That's when we'll be starting this, folks. So. We'll continue our reaction. I'm not just going to pretend that didn't happen, but you know how it is. They have a plan. Well, there'll be chances for us to talk, in other words, still about digest that. And they're going to mix some stuff from the prelims too. But all right, guys, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, play. And it's playing. There we go. Is Mike Swick talking? The Oh, hee, haw, hey, haw. The gladiator thing. Sorry for your ears and the terrible impersonation. You guys got it. It'll cue in people that don't know.
Jonathan Goulet.
Yep. Speaking of French Canadians, there. Although maybe not the best chin. We'll see how he fares in a little bit though. That was one of the things I always remembered about Goulet, perhaps apropos, perhaps not. Yoshiyuki Yoshida, classic judo guy who just wanted to bang to his own detriment, right?
Yep. Where are you at on this timestamp wise? Because I think I might have gotten a couple seconds ahead of you as yours queued up.
Probably mine took a little bit. I'm gonna click 10 seconds forward there maybe, and then there you go. Minute 101, 102. How far ahead of you are of me? Just said Matt Wyman.
I'm at 108, 109.
Okay, just a little bit ahead of me.
There we go. I'll pause it for 2 seconds.
There we go. Showing Dustin Poirier's coach right now, and it didn't show his graphic his name yet, and now it does. Tim Crater.
Crater? That sounds like Cajun fella.
I was like, this isn't. That's right. We've had a couple Abdul Razaks, Razak Al Hassans. This is not the Abdul.
This is Razak Al Hassan coming in on short notice. And you can tell that because he's never fought in the UFC, so he does the Misty Shower, shadow boxing, a classic from the time, throwback.
People remember those.
We'll get to. I'll wait until we get to Jonathan Goulet's fight, which is in the co-main event. But I'm not sure I've ever kind of spoken about the introduction that I had to MMA way back in the day. But wow. That'll be a pretty somewhat relevant to how I first got into MMA. So that'll be cool. A little teaser for the folks.
Nice. I'm excited here. I don't even know this one, folks. I'm excited. Headquarters, Airborne Corps, and Fort Bragg. Brad, I don't think they showed prelims back in these days, right? Or had prelim deals, right? And I know they extended the broadcast for the first time on Spike back on our first fight night that we watched for UFC Fight Night 13. I guess my question is here, how do we have memory of this Corey Hill thing? Did they really insert this in the broadcast? They were like, hey, we gotta show everybody this.
I do not remember. I think it was one of those things where, like, this was still back in the SureDog play-by-play days, unless they show a little clip of it somewhere in here. But it just became like it was so out there in the play-by-plays and that sort of stuff that people had to see it. And eventually the internet found a way, even back in 2008. But I remember seeing it very quickly. Yeah.
Because Twitter starts the year after this, right? I remember getting my Twitter account in April of the following year, 2009.
Yep. I think mine was in 2009 as well. I'm pretty sure I saw this through a forum somewhere. I'm not sure. Okay. It may have been on this broadcast, but we'll see. I would be surprised if it was on the broadcast and they kept it in, based on how much of what happened they edited out already. But
yeah,
we'll get there. Maybe we'll see it. Maybe we won't. That's why we watch it first, folks.
Right, and it gets tricky. People, from this era who watch this era will forgive us because not only was there not prelims, so you're like, well, if there wasn't prelims, either there was prelims or there wasn't. Dan, what's so hard to parse? Well, folks, because they didn't have prelim deals, the UFC was actually good about trying to promote underpromoted things, and as well as fill time. So when you had an early finish, they would always grab a finish from the prelims and plop it onto the broadcast. So you regularly saw fights in the prelims, despite not having a prelim deal. Right, Brad?
That is very correct. I think we get, as you said already, 2 of them on this card that we'll watch. One, a full, well, don't want to spoil it too much, but one's a full 15-minute fight, and the other one is not. But yeah, they would tuck things in whenever there was a finish. This was another, I believe it was a 3 hour time slot for this one. I don't think they all were at this point, but I know for the fundraising aspect, they definitely did this one for 3 hours.
Yep, and they got a pretty good, decent crowd here in North Carolina. This is at the, by the way, not to timestamp too much, it was Memorial Day weekend, and we are coming off a rare UFC break where their last card was in North Carolina. They haven't been there in about 5 years prior, so kind of another apropos. Not to timestamp it, but they were in the Cumberland County Crown Coliseum. Welcome to the Cumberland Crown County Coliseum. Watermelon contest in the back. Like, sorry, it just sounds like something like that. Apologies for your ears. That just sounds
There
great.
was one little clip of Matt Wyman walking out there, and I glanced up at the TV quickly. I thought it was Patrick Cote walking out for a second, but
whoa, look at that young Jimmy Miller. He's got like peach fuzz on his. He's got peach fuzz instead of like the
full grizzled beard.
Yes, or beard. Like he's got like almost like a reddish peach fuzz, like, you know, like he's still maturing. This is young Jimmy Miller, folks. And speaking of young, I mean, Matt Wyman, I know he made that random return for whatever reason during the pandemic to newer fans. So he looked like a grizzled hipster. Yeah, I know. He looked like and he was really angry, right? He was very angry. And he was always kind of weird, but like you can kind of see why they call him handsome Matt Wyman, much younger back here in 2008.
Almost like fighting isn't good for the long-term looks.
Yeah. I mean, that's
even
why,
Jim Miller, like, you know, not a horrible looking fella at this point in time.
No, man, he almost like you know, he's got the light eyes. He's got like if somebody done him up right, he could do like some kind of Backstreet Boys like kind of a sketch to make fun of like a boy band. Not that he looks like a boy band, but he could totally like, you know, do enough to be a sketch to like make fun. He's very young and handsome looking, Jimmy Miller. Not ashamed to say that.
Kevin. Kevin was like the trashy kind of Backstreet Boy.
Yes, yeah,
Jim Miller,
he looks like.
Jim Miller could be that guy.
Yeah, he looks like Kevin. Oh my god. Oh god.
You're not going to get analysis like this anywhere else, folks.
That's right. You got Dan Miller and remember I love that guy. Mike Constantino in the corner.
Oh yeah. He hasn't been around in a minute.
Yeah, he got more into managing, then kind of fell into the background, but was kind of a you know, underrated, kind of a Mark Henry-esque corner. Not to keep it too Jersey, but I like Mike Constantino. You did good interviews on Junkie Radio back in the day.
I don't know if I'm misremembering what I thought from back in the day, but I kind of thought that Dan Miller was going to end up being the more successful of the Fightin' Millers when they first came into the UFC, which was both around the same time.
Sure. Well, he had the IFL highlights for people like yourself who actually followed that, so that would actually make sense to you. You and others probably would thought that at the time.
I think it was the Rosholt win too. I was like, oh,
yes, yeah,
that's a big deal. And these guys are getting ready to do it, just chucking them.
Of course, Jim Miller stepped in for Frankie Edgar on like under 3 weeks' notice or something on this fight. And the open stance Miller southpaw, of course, classic.
Already clipping Wyman a couple times with those hooks on the inside.
Yep.
Fighting off the breaks.
Jim Miller was one of the guys I would watch to try to like instruct myself on how to like try to like, okay, what should I do as a southpaw? Not that was his forte, but guillotine, classic Jimmy. I don't know if he'll get one, but we'll probably see him going for one again this weekend.
I already put a bet on Jim Miller this weekend for what it's worth.
My man.
Whew. That is Wyman looked like he wanted to tap a couple times on this already, but
Yamasaki almost giving him a full handshake to try to get Wyman's hands off Miller's shorts. There, you see. Again, warnings for days, right? No point, but he'll let you be a warrior. That Yamasaki.
Jeez.
He'll let you warrior cheat your way out of a submission, but he won't.
Well, he didn't even get a warning there. He was just batting his hand in the way. He was like, you might get choked out, so whatever. You can cheat however you want. That's not a problem.
I'm just glad Miller wasn't wearing a tie cup. Otherwise, it would have been like making him uncomfortable.
Which one of them?
Oh yeah, that's true too. I just picture Wyman hooking it and catching a finger. You know, it
The
just turns into a
string.
wedgie situation. Yeah,
Couple decent elbows from Jimmy from the top as well. Staying
yeah.
busy. Oh, one of them looks like it cut Wyman open, rubbing his face.
So this is classic Jim Miller so far. We know that he's hellfire in the first round. I'm curious to see if how he holds up as this fight goes on. Though, let's see what my memory is of early Jim Miller. If his gas was any better or same, or he's a furious
I,
good one.
I feel like, I mean, just based on the age, it was probably a little bit better. And then you've got all the health stuff on top of that that has crept in over the years with his career. But
Yeah, that's right.
we'll find out certainly. But definitely a nice pace to start this one off. And it has Wyman in trouble in multiple ways.
Yeah, cut Wyman open with some elbows. So, you know, Jim Miller reminding us that he's always been a fan of the elbows. He's not quite as skilled at where he's doing these single collar tie elbows, like you see him later at 155, UFC 155 against Joe Lozon. But a grounded pound, he will slice, and he's on bottom, of course. Classic Jim
Classic
aggression,
Jim
getting him on
Miller.
bottom. Yeah, Jim Miller has never seen a submission that he's never not thought he could get.
That was like it was halfway between a triangle and an inverted triangle from him being in guard, and he was like, "No, I got this."
Yeah, it doesn't matter how black his
Ooh,
belt is. It doesn't matter how much of a veteran Jim is. He will always make that mistake and just go for every submission that comes across the table.
nice up kick to the body and then
Yeah,
up kick to the face there as he was
that
standing up,
was
and
Wyman
Wyman
working
landed
the
a
body.
shot. Yeah,
Yeah, wow. Yeah,
uh,
Wyman always came to scrap, man. I mean, he was you know, an action
well,
fighter in that way for the most part. Oh,
yeah,
oh, body,
ooh,
that one
hurt
hurt.
to the body,
They just went to like
and
body wars, and Jim being the southpaw side got him better. Look, he might have got the liver there. Wyman did not like that.
no, that's that one tickled. Um, yeah, Wyman always showed up except for those last couple of fights, which
Yes, of course. Yeah,
understandably
that was.
like a
Yeah,
million years old at that point.
I
This
remember he would say, "What's up?"
good.
I was going to say he would if he won, he would always shout out his dogs, Matt Wyman, because he would always lead the channel to whatever the fight was going to be on, so his dogs could see him fight. I
That's
appreciated that.
awesome.
Yeah,
I was just gonna say some of these fights at this pace. First of all, this is why you start the card off with lightweights, or in today's day and age, something lightweight or lower on the card
yes,
because
yeah,
you get a fast paced fight like this. But 4 minutes of this fight went by, and I was just like, oh wow, there's only a minute left in the round. It's crazy. Never fails.
yeah. And you know, not to spoil, but kind of like the guy who was supposed to fight here, Frankie Edgar, who fought Gray Maynard in the last rewatch we did. Right, again, it
Yep.
was one of the few fights on that card that went to a decision. Spoiler alert. And you wouldn't be able to know. It's not a complaint because it's entertaining, even when there is no finish.
Nice, nice
Nice, yeah.
reactive shot by Miller there.
Hustling. I mean, he's going through all the phases. The dirty boxing. We actually saw some dirty boxing off the collar tie there. Single legs. I mean, these guys aren't as good as they're going to end up being, especially Jim Miller. But they're still showing full-fledged MMA here, especially
They
for
have the
2008.
ideas in place at least.
Yeah, seeing leg kicks. We're seeing literally all ranges: boxing range, kickboxing range, clinch, reversals, submissions, ground and pound. Again, that's why that's the lightweight division or lighter weight divisions.
So far, and you don't
Counters,
hear this. Ooh, nice counter
body
from
work.
Miller. You don't hear this about Miller a lot these days, but to me, so far, this fight has come down to him being a far superior athlete than Matt Wyman.
That is true too. Yeah, you do forget about that, and that's. I mean, he may not jump out as an athlete, but Miller explodes like he fights like one. He fights in explosions.
Yep, and that's part of the cardio issues these days. But
Right.
through a minute and a half of round two, it's holding up well so far.
Body work, and it looks like Matt Wyman is the one that took this one on short notice. Obviously, he's taking a lot of body shots, so he's feeling it and wearing it. But I mean, Jim's pace isn't even slowing down, and we're halfway through the the scheduled time for the fight.
Actually knows how to finish a single against the cage. I mean, it wasn't the greatest, cleanest
Right.
finish in the world, but at least he pulled him off the cage to try and finish it instead of trying to wrestle him in the third row.
Yeah, which is a good adjustment because what did he start the round? Failing on some singles in the open. So he's like, well, let me get him to the cage and I can get a probably better bite on this. And now he's on top.
Yep.
And Wyman looking like he's tired and feeling it. I don't blame him. It's just, again, crazy. Miller was the one that took this fight on short notice. But, like, that's why Joe Silva loved him, you know? He's like, Jim Miller never said no, and the guy always came to fight. And that's just...
I don't know that Tapology or anything necessarily goes back this far, but I wonder if Miller had something booked around this. And then
yeah, I mean, he looks in good shape, too.
Fight, yeah.
It's trim, yeah. Hayabusa. I didn't realize Hayabusa was around back then. This is early Hayabusa, obviously. Jim Miller's wearing. You got the classic. I like those camo cut ones. I'm not like a big camo guy, believe it or not, but I do like the camo cut sprawls that Matt Wyman has. Cool colors. Primarily black with a little bit of trim.
Every once in a while around this period of time, we actually used to get Hayabusa commercials on TV up here because GSP was one of their guys. So, yeah,
nice.
we used to see those every so often.
Are they a Canadian company?
I don't think so. I wish I knew. My first pair of I was never much for the striking arts, folks. This face is not built for getting punched. But the first pair of gloves that I ever had was a pair of Hayabusas. So
they're good gloves. I have Hayabusa gloves right now. I liked my first pair, so I got the second pair. I still have my fitted shin guards from like 2012, back when I was actually on the Extreme Couture amateur fight team, because they just made perfect like sleeve ones, so you could like kickbox with them, but you could also grapple. You know, they weren't like Velcro straps or anything. They were slide-ons, right?
Yeah. But
they still had like really good padding, and even though the heels and the stitchings all like come apart at the bottom for the most part, they still work fine. I still use them in camp last year. It's great. Not a paid product, folks. Just shouting out Hayabusa. They Brad not talking out of his ass. They actually make good quality stuff.
I know a thing every now and then, and I know that we got off on a tangent there, but there's still plenty of action on the ground here. Wyman's trying to find space. Miller's constantly throwing ground and pound here and trying to get around those hips, but yeah, a solid second round, and as we suspected, Jim Miller has held up the pace a little bit better than he would in 2023.
Yeah, I mean, what I would give Brad, just to see this version come out and just wreck some kid again. And he's done that in his older age, which is amazing, right? So Jim, props to Jim, but yeah. And by the way, yeah, and I'm sure people will I'm sure, Brad, you're getting used to this by now. It will not be uncommon for me to comment either on the crowd, hairstyles, or the fashion at the time. In fact, that'll probably be a good third to half of the commentary. It won't be technical. You're going to get a break from the technical stuff from me. I'll talk about it here and there, but
I like to look around at the sponsors.
Yeah, that too.
So they do actually have behind each fighter, as you can see now, the Fallen Heroes donation site. Mario Yamasaki's doing some mop-up duty. Good for him. Maybe the UFC can bring him back to clean the octagon or something like that these days.
The
Harley Davidson
sponsorship, wasn't that the Tom Cruise?
Bud Light. Can't have them anymore. That's some of that woke shit. And
Bud Light. Yep, that was a big one.
Matt Wyman coming out like a house on fire for about 10 seconds and gets taken out again.
Yep, Jimmy hits the level change. By the way, Valkyrie, wasn't that Tom Cruise Nazi movie where no one spoke with German accents, but they were all Nazis? Of course, so. UFC be advertising that. This is my Holzerreich era, so of course UFC is, my God.
There's some of this stuff like I saw and heard about these products like BSN every week.
I used to
clue what that actually is.
I actually bought their protein tub. I remember because it had like Forrest Griffin on the front, and I'm like, this stuff is really chalky tasting. Nothing against Forrest, but I was like, oh, I don't know about this stuff. Well, let me just work on my jujitsu instead. It's just...
They decided to release the Tom Cruise movie about Nazis on Christmas Day. That's
wow, Christmas.
I just see the 12:25 on
Yes.
the mat there.
Wow. What a campaign. I mean, what a campaign. Advertising on UFC mats. And, I mean, they're to the right audience. I mean, let's be honest. But
Especially this card.
I know. Oh, my God. The irony, right? Oh, geez. Yes. And it's on a military card. Oh, jeez. Right.
You got to give them credit. I mean, I guess you still kind of have to give them credit. Like they still kind of know their audience, but they really knew their audience back in this time period.
What's the corporate term, Brad? Brad, is it brand consistency? Is that the term?
Yep. Ooh. There was a real heavy left hand down into side control that got him into side control from Miller there. That was one right on target. Matt Wyman has a chin on him, that's for sure.
That was, yeah. Man, Jim Miller was just hell to deal with. I mean, this is either just before or just after his fight with Dwayne Ludwig, where like he drops Dwayne Bag Ludwig and then armbars him. Like, but everyone remembers the armbar on the record, but like he actually outstruck Dwayne Bag Ludwig. Jim Miller did. Remember that?
Yeah.
Knocked him down. His club and subbed his ass.
And that guy invented an entire system of striking, so that's got to be good.
That's right. Yeah, he actually does it. It's taken at my gym, so you know, I shouldn't be talking smack. But you know, guys know me. I love Jim Miller.
Nothing
really personal to Dwayne. I love
criticize. Jim. Ooh, nice knee from Wyman there, but ends up on
yes.
back again.
But I can celebrate some Jim Miller, baby. Bet your ass. Oh, pause on my end. Mine paused at 158. Is yours still going?
It is.
Okay, I'll catch up to you.
At one, or if you want to catch up, I'm at 145, 44, 43.
It's just like frozen over here.
I'm scrambling here. Wyman using a single to get back to his feet. And
keep watching the audience. I'll be right there.
Yeah, Miller used a crucifix to get to Wyman's back. That was actually pretty slick. I'm upset that Dan missed that because he would have really appreciated that.
Right.
And Miller on the back, and it's 2008, so people don't just hold on to the body triangle forever. Using the hooks. Almost looked like he crossed his legs there, but I don't think it matters. 14 minutes into a fight, guys really aren't going to take advantage of that. Right. And kind of looks like Jimmy's slowing down a bit at this point and looking to hold on to some position, but little opening that if he really wanted to, he could probably slip around for an arm triangle. But I don't think he's too interested in that, being up 2018 with now 34, 33 seconds left in the fight.
Yeah, I'm sure Mike Constantino and Dan Miller are just screaming like, just stay in control, Jim.
Standing, a bunch more ground and pound coming in, and yeah, just forcing more and more grappling exchanges, as Jim Miller ought to do, using the front headlock to control some position. That's going to be just about it for this one, folks. We'll get Dan caught up for the next one. Jim Miller looks like he is tired and in pain after that fight, but we'll get to the official decision coming up next, allegedly.
It's making me fast forward, so I'm going to try to fast forward and try to meet for maybe they give Jim Miller a post fight, and I'll try to cue in on that. Otherwise, we'll definitely cue in on the start of the next one for sure.
I'm at
you just keep rolling on yours and let me know.
24.50 on my
24.50. Okay.
Sounded like there was someone ringside just shrieking. I'll turn it up.
Eddie
for the
Alvarez's
interview
wife?
there.
All right.
Maybe.
It was on pretty good, but he was squirming, and it was only a little, matter of time for my arm tapped out because I did only take it on a week's notice. So, I just tried to gas him out as much as I could, and go on from there. And here's an awesome combination that you landed later on in the fight. I worked on my hand a lot.
What just happened? Was he tired?
He said there was an awesome combination that you landed later in the fight. Thank you.
Jim Miller's just like, keep it letting it roll. I have it paused right at the graphic after they go to the crowd, and then the graphics loading up of Tim Crater versus his opponent. They're going to show a crowd shot before that of people cheering, panning, and then it's going to do the classic UFC kind of graphic. Let me know when that hits.
A timestamp for that?
Oh, 26:34, sorry.
26:34. I am 15 seconds away from you, sir.
All right.
I just watched Koscheck and Yoshida getting their hands taped.
Count me in the last 5 seconds.
29, 30, okay. 31, 32, 33, 34, 35.
Cool. All right, we're back on, folks. Cool. Hopefully you stayed with Brad for that then. And we are rolling right into Tim Crater versus Nate. Not Brendan Loughnane. This looks like another kind of weird pronunciation here. Lorraine? Pronounce it on the broadcast.
Probably Loughran.
Nate Loughran. Yeah, that makes sense. Loughran. Lorraine, get your damn hands off of her. Sorry.
So there's some stuff that when you go back and watch these cards that happened in prelims that were never aired that were pretty slick. Like that sub that Nate Loughran had against, I guess that must have been something called Johnny Reeves, was pretty slick. It says on Wikipedia that it was a triangle choke, but certainly looked like something different to me. But it didn't look too shabby.
That makes sense. Yeah, definitely one of those names like maybe you would read on like a results page of a SureDog or a Junkie, but if they didn't rebroadcast it on the main card, you might have missed the actual fight and you just read the result.
Yep.
I definitely seen his name a bunch, but then when I came to actually pronouncing it or referencing anything, I'm like, I'm kind of drawing blanks. Of course, Tim Crater, much more notice. He's, I believe, got a Navy background, so that's his tie for this card. But as far as you, the audience member, you probably more know him as one of Dustin Poirier's coaches. Of course, from Dustin Poirier's home gym there. Dustin Poirier is obviously an American top team athlete, but he always gives love, still works with, I believe, AJ Fletcher, other UFC fighters of today, not to timestamp it, still train under Crazy Tim Crater, I believe was his nickname.
And Crater was in the early documentaries, like the Fightville or whatever it was with Dustin Poirier, which is where a lot of people would probably recognize him from.
Did he have a stint on one of the earlier Toughs as well? Again, I was really bad about Tough in general. I'm not really good historian for that stuff.
7, I want to say?
5 Tough seasons, yeah. Yeah, probably that makes sense. That was just like a really action-packed cast. You had like Sadala, Matt Brown, CB Dalloway. So yeah, easy to get lost in the shuffle, but that makes sense. 185. That makes perfect sense.
WWE legend Matt Riddle.
That's right. 1-2, baby. Hitman Fight Gear. The video game, was it a Fight Gear? Who knows?
So whenever we do these, I always want to bust out one of my throwback shirts. So this one is a limited edition. This is actually a bootleg bought outside of UFC 79 on the bridge between like New York, and Excalibur. And they spelled George St. Pierre's name wrong. It's George. It's not George with an S on the end. Yeah. So I've got a special place in my heart for this shirt. But
that's awesome.
Anytime we do one of these shows, Dan, I like to bring it back to the time period.
Yeah, I was thinking I was like, I forgot. I should have thought of something old MMA. I either don't fit most of my stuff, and I definitely don't have any military stuff I can really wear, so I was like, I don't think I can wear anything for this show. But I appreciate you doing that. Of course, 436, 435, round one, exchanging kicks between Tim Crater and Lorraine. I don't know. Lorraine. I'll just call him Lorraine.
We could call him like Josh Thompson's ugly brother. Kind of looks. He's got that look to him.
That is true. Yeah. Josh Thompson always reminds me of Jamie Lannister. Oh, I just saw a wicked leg check, and I wonder if both fighters, when that happened, they just thought about Corey Hill, who fought before them this night.
I hope they weren't watching that live.
Yeah,
because they've got the monitors in the back, so.
Right. They will sneak in fights from the prelims on this broadcast that we're watching, that you are presumably watching as well, folks. But this fight was actually scheduled for the main card, which means this did take place after that Corey Hill fight. And there were quite a few injuries and perhaps some to come on this fight. We'll see.
Who could ever tell? Spooky.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Clinching up and head pressure and a bunch of knees to the body from Crater so far, but Loughran's
grabbing the back of the fence, real classic.
Absolutely.
Forget how big middleweights though are. Again, there are a lot of them are maybe not these guys or this era, but a lot of them can't. Depending on the middleweight, could be a heavyweight. You never know.
You know what? Looking at these guys, if you didn't tell me what weight class they were in, I'd be like, oh yeah, I guess that kind of looks like a couple of welterweights.
Yeah, me too. I was actually going to see. I would have said more welterweight. And perhaps if they were fighting in this generation, maybe they would be. Who knows?
Yeah.
Hard to tell the heights on these guys. I didn't pay too much attention on the tail of the tape, but standard size middleweights for the era. Classic Warrior shorts there for Tim Crater. I always remember like Sean Shirk walking out to that Warrior brand.
Ooh, nice little short left hook from Crater.
Yeah.
They're going after it. I'm not going to lie. I don't have a memory of Nate Loughran after this fight. I don't know if he fought in the UFC again or just disappeared back to the regional scene, as would happen, but landed a couple good shots at that last exchange.
He did. I always remembered Crater as a jiu-jitsu guy, at least how he was titled. But yeah, just no surprise coming from the school of Dustin Poirier does. But yeah, definitely dude was not afraid to scrap and counter and throw in the pocket.
I don't know if it's his stance or the way he moves, but man, Crater's left knee looks incredibly unstable in this fight.
Yeah. This is like he's like Dan Kelly out there throwing hands. Classic middleweight there.
Also, we haven't been going through this too much, but in the previous fight that we just watched, Jim Miller and Matt Wyman was basically a pick'em. Tim Crater was a slight minus 140 favorite in this fight, and Corey Hill was minus 315, which up until the unfortunate injury seemed very warranted.
Yeah, I was gonna say it looked like it. Oh my goodness, that would obviously sucks to be Hill the most, obviously, but yeah, also I'm sure there were some bettors out there that night. Were like, what the heck, man, come on. Hey, how about Big Tan Dan, young Tan Dan Mergliata?
Yeah, medium Tan Dan.
Yeah. He's not just older now, but I believe he had a heart scare. Glad he's all right, but he did that classic thing when the old guys, after they have the inevitable heart scare, they drop all the weight. The big buff bodybuilder guy. He went through that kind of phase. But so it's kind of weird to see like a fully fledged young Tan Dan who probably just came from some Miami party.
Yeah.
Looks like an extra.
Maybe
looks
this
like an extra.
Like I don't know, a Myrtle Beach or something like that, because this card's in North Carolina, right? So
yeah, that's true. Yeah, he just flew up from being an extra in Bad Boys 2 in Miami.
Oh, hanging out with my dude Lance Fishel in Hilton Head, South Carolina.
Hey, I joke, but I bet you odds are probably minus 140 that Dan Mergliata has a credit as an extra in one of the Bad Boys movies. Right. Oh, nice shot there. And stuff slid to the knee too much and pulls guard. Crater on
Ooh.
top.
Okay, I'm sure that if I had the volume up a little bit, I would have heard Joe Rogan coming over the fact that a guy used rubber guard for 2 seconds in a
Oh,
UFC
yeah.
fight in 2008.
Yep.
Uh, but it seems like Loughran is much more comfortable in the grappling realm, considering every time Crater moves forward with more than one punch, he lands pretty clean.
Yep. I'm watching Nate's
But
body language carefully here for what's to come, just because I don't remember this fight at all. But right now he's fighting from guard. He looks like he's cut open on his eye.
pretty active guard, though. Like, dangerous, creeping up high, looking for a whole bunch of different stuff, not just same thing over and over. So, not bad.
Yeah, this is an era where grappling is really kind of hitting innovations. At least in my opinion of my memory. You're really seeing different schools of thought and things happening in the years to come after this. You had the early leg lockers in 2010 to 2012. But yeah, Nate definitely looks like he's a fan of jiu-jitsu as well. Like you said, he had some triangle finishes, I believe, earlier on his resume. But yeah, Crater's playing him pretty tight here, landing elbows where he can.
There's a little
Yeah,
grimace there as he as he went back to rubber guard.
yeah,
We'll see if that turns into anything. Huh?
yeah. I know. We'll see. I mean, you think that would hurt a knee? And he's got an eye cut, but let's see what happens here. About half the round left to go. Feels like it's been a long half first half the round.
Yeah, as we said in the last fight, some fights 4 minutes will go by and it doesn't feel like anything. This one definitely feels like it's been 2.5 minutes at least. But that's
Yep.
all right. They can't all be complete winners.
Well, they're working, so yeah, they definitely don't. You don't have those complaints there. Both sides are working, which you love to see, right? You love to see strikes and submissions and pass attempts.
Absolutely.
Very active, and it's just funny because this is an era where if you're on bottom, you're pretty much losing, but yet, it's almost refreshing to see someone still just not giving a f and still fighting. Big Dan stands him up,
and that's just where some guys are comfortable. That's just what it comes down to, right?
Yep. Ooh, nice body kick by Nate to Tim Crater. Let's see if Crater answers that. No, complains about an eye poke. Gets another body shot by Nate.
Decent body kick again. I think that one was more hip than liver, but
yeah.
It's
hard. Nate just kind of looks gassed a bit right here. I don't know if he's dealing with something or if he's just tired, which would make sense. I mean, he was getting beat up on. It's been a very active fight. More leg checks.
He still looks all right physically, other than being exhausted. But
yeah, I don't see him wincing or grabbing at any particular part of his body. Tim lands another right hand, clinch. They separate. Because he is taking big, deep breaths every time, but he also looks fatigued. So it's like, how much of it is that, or nice right hand, left hook by Tim Crater. He smells blood. It looks like he just finished him with strikes if he wanted.
Yeah.
It's barely hanging. Really struggling to breathe. Another right, left hand. Brutal. Dan's looking close, warning him verbally, it looks like. Which, as he should, at this point. Oh, clenches up. Gonna make the bell. Little takedown. See Nate slow to get up. Does he grab anything? Yeah, exhausted. That makes sense. Bad cut on his eye.
Oh, there he grabbed at his midsection a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw it with his left hand.
But I'm not sure if they're keeping it on them because there was no commercial break at this point, or if they know what happened in the corner of this fight.
Yeah. I'm not seeing the fighter say anything. Of course, they switched it back over to Tim Crater's corner, but and Tim Crater raises his hand. Stopped in the corner.
So allegedly there was a rib injury in there somewhere, folks, which is what Dan and I were not so subtly alluding to at multiple points throughout the commentary.
Yeah.
Didn't see anything specific, but sometimes with those injuries, it doesn't have to be anything big that will cause a rib to slip out of place or something like that. Usually, you don't see guys taking the kind of deep breaths that he was, but there is a little lump on his left body there, as they showed him standing up on his stool.
I mean, with the breaths, you know what it could have been too? It could have been like an Iron Lung Paul Felder, James Vick situation, right? Or where, it's he was like, Paul Felder was taking those weird breaths and then he ends up having a punctured lung that he didn't realize from a broken rib.
Yeah.
Either way, it looked like it was going to be a TKO one way or another, for what it's worth. But
yeah,
not as a violent of injury stoppage as we've already seen tonight, but another injury stoppage nonetheless.
This is very true.
Yeah, that cut looked pretty bad too, even though it was left eye. Is that No Love Rich Clemente in the background? Wow, that guy got thick between fights. No Love Rich Clemente.
Well, he used to like to bounce between 155 and 170 as well, so maybe this was a 170 phase for him.
It's one of those things where he's got the win over Anthony Johnson, where he fought at 155, it happened at 170, and Rumble, rest in peace, finished at 205.
Yeah.
Like Charlie Bredeman, even though he lost, he ended up at 155 after he fought Rumble, and Rumble ended up at 205. Like, how did that ever happen? Poor Charlie Bredeman. The Spaniard. Tim Crater shouting out the military, because again, he's the one. I don't know if Nate had a military background, but Tim did. Valkyrie, I keep laughing every time I see that. In the back, the conspiracy begins. The fact that that's the tagline. So the conspiracy begins on Christmas. I mean, this is so MMA, right?
This is so MMA. What we're about to see, folks. This is.
Oh yeah, here we go.
Razor Razak Al Hassan stepping in on short notice.
I believe that Abdul Razak Al Hassan, the guy who caught the allegations. This guy catches something completely different, not allegations, different Razak Al Hassan, basically.
I threw Razak Al Hassan into Tapology, and obviously Abdul Razak Al Hassan comes, or Al Hassan apparently, comes in first, and then this is the second one. For some reason, I thought there was more of them in MMA, but apparently not.
Wasn't there one that Czech Congo fought at heavyweight or something?
I thought there was another one,
right.
But
I don't know.
Let's.
This guy, though, he looks like they just picked him up off the street, though, literally. I mean, this dude, if they grabbed him last second. We are getting cool, WEC, Steve Cantwell, Brian Stan highlights, which is pretty cool. I haven't seen those in a while. Because WEC, we forget, known for the lighter weight classes, but they actually catered to larger weight classes and had champions there as well.
Yep. slowly phased those out and
Yep.
only had by the time they came to the consciousness of most people, they were down to 170 and below. But, you still had your classics like Chael Sonnen and Paulo Filio. That legendary scrap.
Oh, yeah.
And Carlos Condit, obviously, with his tremendous run through the WEC, which, if you want to really go deep into WEC, folks, Dan and I did a top 20 or a top 5 WEC fights of all time.
I got to refresh that one back. Yeah,
tying it all together.
Oh, I'm gonna have to dust that one back up for the end of the year, Brad. You might see that one get rehashed.
That was a good
list
one.
form, and I'll reshare the audio too. That was a good episode.
I just had a little refresh on my my Fight Pass, so I hope I'm still in the right spot. I'm at 45, 45, 46. So hopefully.
I got Razak Al Hassan 7-0, and the Condom Depot in the background. His hands are up.
Yes, sir.
He looks serious. Condom Depot, baby. Oh my gosh. Steve Cantwell was featuring out of Vegas. He's got one kick Nick, Sergio Pena. I was like, I wonder if he trained with Stephen Bonner at that time.
Cantwell,
another RIP. Jesus Christ.
Cantwell Stan would have been like the ultimate fight for the troops fight because they both had the military connections, right?
Yeah, didn't Cantwell actually have local connections there too? Wasn't he North Carolina, or at least in that area, I believe, right?
I think on that sign that somebody in the crowd had, I just saw that. So I would say that is true. I don't know for certain, though.
Yeah, that was actually kind of a pretty bummer, especially someone who followed, like, Brian Stan in the WEC and saw Cantwell come along to beat him. But we got it anyways. Oh, and they're swinging. Razak Al Hassan aggressive coming forward. Cantwell a little bit of a body jab trying to check the pressure. Leg kick.
What do you have for a fight time here, sir?
431, 430, 429.
Perfect.
Nice. This guy's a pretty sporadic puncher here. It's he keeps his head on this same line though. Razak Al Hassan does.
Yeah, pretty high line as well. So that's not ideal. Don't think it cost him in this one, but we'll see.
We'll see.
He's certainly willing, though. Say that for him. Yeah, Cantwell was still extremely young at this point, and after the Stan win was a highly touted prospect, but a couple nice little knee up the middle from Razor.
I know he was probably fighting a heavyweight at this time, but I wanted like Krylov versus Cantwell. Nikita. That would have been a fun matchup.
I've still got $5 sitting in one of my sports books somewhere on Nikita Krylov, like plus 10,000 to be light heavyweight champion by the end of 2023. So we'll see if a miracle occurs.
That's right. The minor.
If there was ever a time for him, it's now.
Cantwell looking like he's trying to get his beat and answer back. Looked like he was just trying to weather the storm at first.
Yeah, found his kicking range, that's for sure.
Whatever happened to this Razak Al Hassan guy? This guy looks pretty physical and a really good size for the division.
I just looked him up. He lost to Kyle Kingsbury following this fight. And that was the end of his time in the UFC.
Wow. Nice inside trip by Steve Cantwell. deceptively well-rounded. Cantwell, which was another reason why people were interested to see where he could go, I bet.
There's some of this is the time where we had some of these weird sequences. Like Al Hassan was like, I know I should put my legs on his legs, but I don't really
Yes.
know what to do once they're there.
Yeah.
So he just sort of like sat there with his legs and let Cantwell pass around to side mount, side control.
Yep, he's doing the classic. He's putting the knee up like that's going to stop the mount or something. Yeah.
Yep. We saw that in the last card that we did as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. That is definitely the move. Like,
I think last
see what
card was
happens.
more somebody that was really tired. This time it was just somebody that didn't know what to do on the ground.
Yep.
And
Cantwell does get them out. Elbows.
Arms extended.
Himself. Yep. Classic S mount to armbar setup here. And he's actually trying to get out. And because of that, he's using his foot to try to break it. And then he gets his arm snapped back in half. Ouch. Ow. Oh, his eye. Do you see Razak Al-Hassan's eyes? He was like in disbelief, like his arm just got snapped back.
He just looked at Mario like, why did you let that happen to me?
Like, in the movie where out of nowhere the person is talking and their eyes go, huh, and the camera pans down and some giant like blade has gone through their chest, right? Like that was the look Al-Hassan did when his arm just got snapped just now. He was like, huh.
That one, that was far less visceral than the Corey Hill one we watched a little bit earlier. It'll look worse on the replay if they show it. But yeah, that was a lot of wrong things. I mean, maybe some decent ideas about armbar defense, but yeah.
Yeah, it looked like he understood the risk because he does try to defend it, but it's already deep. That's why I was going, ooh, you're really. I'm like, okay, you must be comfortable and know the risks then. And the look on his face is like, oh, he did not understand what the potential consequence was. So for those at home,
see what we get on the replay here.
Yeah, the tally of broken bones is now up to 3. Technically, we're up to 3 broken bones.
Yep,
we've got a broken shin, a broken
and
rib,
all across the body too.
Arm. Yeah, we're making our way around. We'll get to the head eventually, folks. Oh my gosh, you have a better angle of the break?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Ooh.
It wasn't as bad as what we saw with Corey Hill, but for arm bars, that was a bad one for arm bar.
Yeah, that's the ones where like it folds at the joint are like there's like I know the leg break is awful, but there's a whole bunch of things in there that shouldn't be bending that way. Mm-hmm. Dan, I am going to step away for like 1 minute. I'm going to grab myself a fresh brew, and I will be right back as we catch up on. Yeah, I'll leave it playing.
Okay. Mine's frozen, so I'm going to be. But you can go ahead. I'll fill time, but I'm going to link up with you when you get back. So I'm a little frozen here. We're just transitioning into another fight, I believe. But
Fight Pass has never experienced this much demand for Fight for the Troops, folks. That's
I know. Apparently. Yeah, I got I'll talk as Brad gets his drink if he wants to. But yeah, I got a new TV setup, which is great. The quality's great. For whatever reason, it is pausing like mid broadcast. I don't know if it's Fight Pass for TV, but classic me. Thankfully, my guy Brad running. I think they may be inserting either Brandon Wolf or Ben Saunders from the prelims, or we are jumping to Mike Swift versus Jonathan Goulet. I believe we're probably going to go Brandon Wolf versus Ben Saunders. As I'm queuing back up, when Brad comes, he'll tell us the definitive spot. You guys keep rolling if you're listening to this at home. We're not recording this live, so you're not listening to me live, but you know what I mean. Yeah, tally at home right now. We got 3 broken bones so far. Let's see. Let's see what else we got in store as far as the trauma goes for this card. The rest of the fights hopefully aren't too long, not to spoil anything. And hopefully you guys are enjoying a drink as well. I didn't ask Brad what he's drinking, but I'm drinking some Maui Brewing Co. Again, it doesn't really fit the theme. I don't know if we can have a beer that fits this theme, but it's good. I like it. Big Swell IPA, that's the name. Now, if only we can get this TV to pop back on and we'll be good. And those of you who are still running, you guys already know what fight it is. So it'll be a surprise to me once this pops back on, or once my co-host pops back on. And yeah, boy, this TV is fun.
It's Luigi and Brody.
It's Luigi. Oh, Fear of okay, all right, cool,
yeah,
cool.
This is the
the fight already start
for the broadcast. Yeah,
sweet.
We're at 4, 9, 8, 7, 6 of the first round. Luigi Fioravanti shockingly shot for a takedown and is currently in a little bit of scarf hold.
Nice. Of course, Luigi Fioravanti, despite sounding like he it didn't make the plumber cut for Super Mario, he actually is a, I don't know, maybe Brody Faber or Farber has military background, but I know Luigi Fioravanti does. I believe he was a Marine. They would always say it on the broadcast. And of course, as you're, I'm sure, watching now, you know, I appreciate the welterweight build of this era of welterweight. You know what I'm saying? I'm definitely closer to the Luigi Fioravanti spectrum as far as welterweight builds. Brad, I was just commenting, of course, on Fioravanti's build, which is one of his more notable.
I heard. I kept the volume on. I just turned the mic off so you didn't have to listen to me go grab a beer.
There we go.
But you know, just to fit with the theme of the card thus far, I grabbed a Boneyard IPA. Yeah.
Nice. So, all right, we're both drinking.
This is from the local brewery near the cottage. So
nice.
One of my favorite spots.
Nice. My Fight Pass is coming back on right now. So I'm probably gonna have to fast forward a little bit to catch up to you, but I'll ask you to hit me with a timestamp when in a few seconds here.
Absolutely. We just had Fioravanti. Farber got back up to his feet. Fioravanti stopped. He shot for another takedown, little scramble. He's in a weird kind of back control where he's standing up with one hook in, and now he's in a more traditional back control and has both hooks in and working for a rear naked choke, but nothing doing quite as of yet.
Well, it sounds like a fast-paced fight, which I imagine it would have to be for them to have wanted to put this one from the prelims onto the broadcast, right, Brad?
Given some of the other options that were there, I would suspect, a little bit of takedown, top control, and now back control, but Farber's moving around, trying to get out. Fioravanti's landing a good amount of ground and pound while he's there, and some decent riding and mat returns, stuff like that. So not too shabby. And now just back up to the feet, and Fioravanti working against the cage, holding position, working the body with some dirty boxing, probably about to look for another takedown, which there it is, and gets it quite easily.
Gotcha. I'm currently fast forwarding from the beginning. They made me go from the beginning. But what's a rough time? Are we looking at hour 36 or hour 20 minutes? Where are we at? 50 minutes, 51 minutes?
We are at 58 minutes and 35 seconds and counting.
Okay, I'm going to try to go over to 59 in the neighborhood and meet you there by the time I get there.
Yep. Oh. Not a problem. Not a terrible first round, but not the most entertaining first round that you've ever seen. Very, very easy to score. 10-9 Fioravanti to this point.
All right. Where you at? Minute?
22, 21, 20 seconds left.
Okay, round one? Gotcha.
Yep.
I'm in round two. I overshot a little bit, but I'll be with you in a second.
If you just cue it up for the start of round two, I will meet you there, sir, because there's no commercial breaks. So
gotcha.
We're just about to end round one, and we'll be there in a moment. And just about to start round two here. Love the way that Fioravanti's build accentuates that tattoo across the belly. Just nothing better. And we're at 4:55, 4:54 of round two now.
Cool. I'm paused at 4 minutes and 2 seconds because my thing's being really finicky and I don't want to test it anymore. So I'll wait for you at the 4:02 mark. Spoiler
All
alert,
right.
Fioravanti's putting that belly to work back on top, baby. He's finding his home.
Hey, Luigi always on top.
That's right.
Just Farber trying to find his range and not able to do so early in this round. And a couple decent knees from the clinch, but they allowed Fioravanti to get an entry and finishes a double quite easily at about 4:15. So you only missed 10 seconds of elite. 9,
Sweet.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, we're synced up again. Boom. Yep. And he goes to almost a mount and gets pushed back. A little guard retention from Faber there. I don't know if it's because Brody is he's got the bald head, with the skin complexion going on. But that metal militia, I know the Diaz brothers wore it all the time, but maybe I've got my my Nazi radar up. But it's very Holzer-Reichish. Something about the font. I don't know why. Something about they love the helmet with the metal militia. I don't know. It was very. Then we've got like the Iron Eagle tap out. Like this is very. These things don't age very well, do they, Brad?
Which troops are these guys fighting for? What are we talking about here?
On the mat. We got Valkyrie on the mat. Like, I love that. Like all the ignorant people that like in the old boxing heads and around this era, right, Brad? They would be like, they would try to make fun of MMA, and they'd be like, it's just a bunch of skinheads rolling around, and you'd be like, shit. We got us there.
It is.
There's more to this. There's more to this, man. There's more to this.
The famous Bob Arum quote about homosexual skinhead fighting.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of truth to that, man. It is both a very gay and very racist place. It's amazing. Saying it with a tongue in cheek, folks. Don't get offended out there with these jokes, folks. Come on now. Faber fighting his way back into it though, trying to re-wrestle and had some brief success. Island Supplements, were they still running this? Like Sean Shirk already got busted earlier this year. He lost, right? He got in trouble for Island Supplements, right? Or even before this, because BJ and him fight in May of this year, right? And there was the whole steroid controversy.
Well, this is when he would have been, or they would have been cleared a little bit, right? Because
maybe.
It wasn't his fault. So.
That's funny. Island Supplements. These little like Easter eggs, right?
Yeah.
Classic Kimura trap Sakuraba style.
I mean, I'm not sure that Fioravanti is the guy that you want advertising your supplements, though.
Yeah, I know. Like, geez, even this era, he kind of stood out. Like. He wasn't quite Cristololo or whatever that guy was, Anthony Cristolo, but he's right.
Tony Puddings, legend.
Yeah, that's right. He's one weight class up, though, right, Brad?
Yeah, Tony Puddings was a lightweight.
Although Tony Puddings actually, despite being a weight class down, he looked like he could have filled in for Fioravanti at any time.
Back up to the feet, and not a lot on the feet from either guy in this fight. I mean, they were on the prelims of a UFC Fight Night in 2008, so
yeah.
I don't know what you're really expecting, but this is one of the ones that Dan and I were alluding to earlier, where some of these age well, and some of them we only kind of think that they age well because of nostalgia, and I think this kind of falls into the latter category, although it wasn't initially on the main card.
This guy fights like Faber fights like Anthony Smith, but like the worst version of Anthony Smith. Even the way he moves, and I don't know. Maybe it's the tattoo and the bald guy thing I can't get out of my head, but it's something very Anthony Smith about him, like early Anthony Smith too, or maybe now later Anthony Smith, depending.
Anthony Smith, aside from the slight run towards the top of the light heavyweight division.
Yeah. But he has that like menacing, like he looks like looks really menacing. Like how scary does Anthony Smith look, right? Especially at like
Yeah,
middleweight
like
where
the
he's
hunched
huge.
shoulders and everything like that. Yeah, I
But like
gotcha.
he's not like throwing a jab. He's not really throwing much less jabs or anything. And that's what Brody's doing. He's not throwing much, and he throws a front kick, a length weapon there, I guess. But he not by a giant stretch, but he's clearly the taller and longer guy. And again, no, not this era of MMA. No one fights their body type really. They fight how they want to
I,
fight.
a lot of guys. I don't know if there's.
Oh, there's some clench knees there, actually, real nice.
I was going to say, I'm not sure if a bunch of these guys saw what happened on one of the other prelims that we're about to see, but maybe they were inspired by Ben Saunders, and that's why we've seen a couple other fighters go for clinch knees in this on this card.
Yeah, they were like, "Oh wait, you don't have to be Anderson Silva." Spoiler, but we'll get to that. Yeah, it always is funny to see how those things. Is he wearing an MMA? I remember that website that's on the front of the Fioravanti shorts. Was it MMA Overload or something?
Yep, that was for a while. It was around.
I'm sure they probably got my money for some fight shorts at some time.
That was more of a takedown than a drop with that punch. Caught the left leg or caught the right leg and landed the right hand at the same time and got to mount and couldn't control position at all.
Another reason why they could have put this on there was for time, right? Because I don't know if this was like telethon style, but I forgot to note they actually raised $4 million just during this broadcast alone, for what it's worth, for the Intrepid Heroes Fallen Heroes Fund. So maybe they needed some more time to work to get to that number, that nice $4 million number. So they're like, let's throw this fight here, this 3-round war on here. It's actually some nice positioning for Fioravanti.
Like, what else would have been on Spike TV at this point in time?
Yeah. Fioravanti, that's really nice. He's using something that I love to use, especially when trying to take it back, where you have like a wrist feed, and use that. And
flatten him out for a second, but just there are certain points in MMA where length does come in handy, and that is not something that Luigi Fioravanti has in spades.
No, but he came in this era where, again, like, he was like a chubbier Diego Sanchez, where when I saw them fight, that was the first time I think I saw Luigi Fioravanti fight. And he's just you get away with that size and that build a little more in this era.
Yep. If you could wrestle and you could keep going for 15 minutes, you were good to go.
I mean, I say that, and like Fioravanti's probably still like an inch or two taller than RDA, right? Who's can still make hay at welterweight in his older age, despite being a lightweight. But that's also RDA, right? We're talking about.
Yeah, one of the guys is let's see. Fioravanti is 5'9", allegedly.
RDA is probably like 0-2 in the UFC right now, because he starts off at like 0-2 and like goes 2-2 or something, like in 2008 or something. So RDA is probably like an 0-2 nobody right now, which is kind of crazy. Think about where fighters are at this time period.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to think of when the Stevens knockout was, and I thought that was on like a relatively big card.
It was. Yeah, it was.
That was literally the Couture Lesnar card just before this that we had referred to earlier in the store in the show. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's right. That did happen before this December. Yeah.
Yep.
Holy crap. That's funny. Yeah. So he is 0-2, I believe, at that point. RDA, Jeremy Stevens is getting knockouts. I mean, Chuck Liddell is still on the roster this time, folks. I don't even think he's been knocked out by Rich Franklin yet, right? UFC 115 hasn't happened up in Canada. That was 2009, right? 2010 or 2009 even. I mean, Liddell was on the roster. That says something.
Yep. Yeah, Liddell hadn't even been knocked out by Shogun at this point.
Wow.
Yeah. So RDA had a very difficult first two fights in the UFC. Jeremy Stevens and Tyson Griffin.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is a real tough start. Tyson Griffin was I'm not sure too.
Talking about short, thick dudes.
Yeah,
Tyson
again,
Griffin,
man. I mean,
top of the
yeah,
list.
I mean, in all divisions, it would seem much more kinder to the shorter, thick dudes. I feel like, right? We just saw them kind of throughout the divisions. I mean, Jason Lambert probably wasn't much taller than Luigi Fioravanti fighting at 205, and that guy still had to cut weight to get there. You know, remember the Punisher, Jason Lambert. He was kind of ahead
Yeah,
of it. Now all the people are doing like the Punisher things, which is so funny because the Punisher hated cops, but we'll forget about that. But
context is important.
context. Young Joe Rogan talking to Fioravanti.
Fioravanti had to have like that's why they showed him, because he's got the veteran connection on this card. Rogan just mentioned it there.
Yep.
That makes a whole lot more sense now. Anyway, we're past the any slow moments in the card.
Yep.
It's all action from here on out, folks. Gonna be a fun time for
Absolutely.
the remainder of the fights that we have left. I mean, not that was a bad fight by any means. It's just, compared to some of the other stuff, both in terms of quality and pace, doesn't quite hold up. But we will see.
Yeah, I'm going to take a quick bathroom break real quick. But Brad, you want to keep the show going? I apologize if any audio clicks, but I take my AirPods off.
Oh, you're good. Still sporting mutton chops back in 2008. Ben Saunders.
Recording. All right, sorry about that, folks. A little bit of a hiccup. But I'm curious to see what my man Ben Saunders fight here. I know it just kind of blipped on the broadcast. So we're going to be queued up at 1:13:10. So we shouldn't be too far if you're listening to this in its Harmony edited version, right? Okay, so they're doing another quick fights from here on out, like Brad said. We're at 1:13:10. It should be a Fight Night live icon that kicks us into this next fight between Ben Saunders and Brandon Wolf. So we're going to go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, play. And nice. We got a shot of the octagon. Of course, the camera's slowly coming in. Tail of the tape is there. Ben Saunders, who I did not recognize. If you guys were watching prior where we were having the hiccups, you will see the kind of talking thing that they do prior to this setup. And I didn't even recognize Ben Saunders. Did you, Brad?
Well, when they first showed him, he had the mutton chops. So I was like, oh, yeah, Ben Saunders was born with mutton chops. Sure. But then, like, some of the interviews, he didn't have them, and I was confused. No. He's got them in the tail of the tape. We're going to see if he's got them now. But let's see how he feels about his opponent, Brandon Wolfenstein, here.
Yeah, Wolf, I remember on the broadcast, he was a Navy SEAL. So obviously,
gotcha.
Not just military connection, but I remember going, oh, wow, okay, Navy SEAL, huh? I don't think we've had any Navy SEAls in the Special Forces unit for United States, for people unfamiliar, for whatever that's worth. Just a cool tidbit. Of course, we got Ben Saunders, Kill a Bee. This is his first fight. American top team still, Florida. All right.
Always.
Yeah, from the beginning. Okay.
I was going to say something else about Brandon Wolf, but I do not remember at this point.
Did Ben Saunders ever come out to Wu-Tang, Kill a Bees and Attack? That'd be a crime if he didn't at least come out to that at least once.
Kill a Bee, Ben Saunders. Me as much of a Wu-Tang guy, but
I remember him talking about like Jeet Kune Do, and like I don't know if he was vegan at this time, but he did the vegan thing for a minute. But this is my first introduction to Ben Saunders. I don't know about you, Brad. Low blow. Of course, Southpaw Saunders.
Right off the bat.
Open stance matchup. Brandon Wolf, I don't know if he's from Hawaii, but his tattoos make me think he's from Hawaii.
It said that on the tail of the tape, or not the tail of the tape, but as he was being introduced, Kalua.
Okay, that makes sense.
And
Dan Igue's dad was a Navy SEAL. What if somehow this guy was Dan Igue's dad? Of course he's not.
I don't know. MMA time works differently.
Yeah, MMA time is.
I was having a couple issues with my Fight Pass stream. So
yeah, at a certain point, wasn't Lee Mean fighting more than Jordan Mean? And here are the knees, Muay Thai, just double collar ties, as my man Ryan Wagner will say. But the Thai plum, of course, as they say on the commentary, he actually releases it, throws a high kick. But Brandon Wolf just seems frozen against the cage, and Ben Saunders just goes at him again. Shakes him off. More body kicks from Southpaw. Oh, brutalizing the body. Then back to the double collar tie, or known as broadcast commentary as the Thai plum, as Goldberg loved to say. This is brutal. He's turning away, and the ref doesn't even look like he's warning him. Okay, now the ref's warning him as he's turning away from these knees for like the umpteenth time. Like, dude.
Oh, his face is a mess.
I mean, Killer Bee. So talk about Killer Bees in attack. I mean, it almost looks like a comical beast, like a cartoon bee sting attack, right? We'll see. You'll see here, folks, if you haven't seen this fight yet. You can't see right now because it's just a clench fest of collar ties covering his face, and knees are coming up the middle. But you guys, oh my God, they're the lumps. I mean, he's just disfigured. Oh my God, he's turning away again, and the ref nowhere in sight. Ref out of position. Now the ref comes in. Jesus, wasn't even in position to stop the fight. That was brutal.
Probably why I hadn't heard of Al Coley before this fight.
And after. Like, this, Rich Franklin, in both the fights put together, I don't think took that many straight knees. I think Jason Doomsday...
They skip right through to having the ice bag on his face instead of some of the aftermath there.
By the way, I don't know how many. This is at least the third time where the fighter was so messed up that they couldn't come. You know, the fighter's messed up when there's only one person. The ref's raising the hand for when they come back from commercial. You know, the fighter's so messed up they can't even stand there. That's happened multiple times tonight so far, folks. I'm just saying.
So
I don't think it's.
Says the event resulted in an unusual number of serious injuries. Corey Hill, Razak Al Hassan, Brandon Wolf, Nate Loughran, and perhaps two people that we haven't seen fight yet were all hospitalized for injuries sustained during their fight.
Yes. So, again, we're not done. We're not there yet, folks. We're not going to put our final judgment in, but we weren't talking out of our ass when we said we're going to try to find one of the more violent cards as far as fight nights go. So, yeah. Yes,
absolutely. Now we've got the intro to Jonathan Goulet and Mike Quick Swick. Of course, at this point, Mike Swick, former title contender, hot shit prospect off of the original Ultimate Fighter. I'm not sure if you could say that he never quite panned out, because obviously he had quite a bit of success. But I think people expected more success from him than he eventually had in the UFC. But man had a good career, and Jonathan Goulet, a legend of the Quebec regional scene. And my introduction to MMA wasn't through Jonathan Goulet, but the fighting promotion TKO is, as it exists now in Quebec, used to be something called UCC, Ultimate Combat Challenge. And there was a host of fighters that came through UCC and fought in the UFC, the least of which, or not the least of which, would be Georges St. Pierre.
Yep.
Obviously. But Sean Pearson, I don't think, Richie Nanku never fought in the UFC because they didn't have bantamweights back at that time. Antonio Carvalho fought with and trained with all of those guys.
Yep.
But in high school, my wrestling coach, he was one of the wrestling coaches for Team Canada.
Nice.
And instead of running just like your general high school gym program, he ran this program called Combatives. So he ended up having these guys. So we had a whole bunch of people come into our high school gym class. But he had Sean Pearson and Tony and Richie and these guys actually come in, and Justin Bruckman as well, who was like the gym is his that all these guys train out of. Bruckman fought GSP at one point. And they taught us some like basic jiu-jitsu and stuff like that. This was back in like 2000. So that was my first introduction to MMA. Was from basically a bunch of guys that ended up in UFC.
I mean, that's technically the dark ages is when this is going down, right, Brad? What people would consider some of the dark ages for the sport. So
at that time, they could only fight in Kanawaki, which was one of the reserves outside of Montreal. They couldn't even really fight in Quebec, and piques my interest, certainly. I actually wasn't on the wrestling team prior to that, and that was sort of like what spurred me to get onto it.
That's awesome. That is really cool. I would have been pumped too. That would have been like right up my alley, man. That's really cool. That made it much more funner than like a normal wrestling class too. Like getting to just do all that stuff. That's wicked.
So much appreciated. And now here I am, almost a quarter of a century later, sitting on a stream with the inimitable Dan Tom talking about.
Well, I feel bad for you there. I feel bad for you there.
Guys.
Hey, was that a Habs jersey that he would always come out with? Forgive me in my hockey. I'm not educated. That was a Habs jersey, right? That's right.
Yep.
Oh man, they should have. They really should have. You know, did we get Jonathan Goulet versus Marcus Davis? We could have had some like Boston Bruins and a little bit of beat the Habs action. Bruins and Habs. I know enough to say that.
That would have been a good sell for. I guess they didn't really do that many cards in Boston at that time, or in like the Northeast. But
true,
that would have been a good one. That would have got some people out.
I mean, that would have been great. I don't know where Marcus Davis fits on the USA Canada timeline around UFC 58, but could you imagine if they booked like Marcus Davis versus Goulet? Get a little jersey walkout action? That would have been cool.
What was I'm looking through Goulet's record here, and I'm trying to think of what the timeline could have been for that.
Because I know like he knocked out like a bunch of like random like Euro dudes like Jess Liadon and stuff. There was a time where like they were serving up Marcus Davis and I'm not shitting on Day. I liked watching him, man. Southpaw boxing guy. But yeah, they gave him some friendly action matches for a stretch there. This was right around this time, I believe.
Yeah, that was the
UFC 81 Rapid Fire. He beat Jess Liadon, I'm thinking. So he's around this time too. So they would have crossed paths. Maybe not as early as UFC 58 for USA versus Canada, but
Davis and no, I don't even know how this slipped my mind, but Davis and Goulet fought at UFC 113.
People, sorry for those of you screaming at the monitors. Wow, that fight did go down. Okay, now I'm going to go back and watch this afterwards, and I'm going to be really disappointed if they didn't wear jerseys, because that was an era just like this we're watching right now, folks, where the UFC would actually let people wear some stuff.
And Mike Swick had a history of fighting Canadians.
Yep.
Fought David Loiseau, Alex Garcia, who's I guess kind of Canadian, Dominican.
Swick was interesting too. He started at light heavyweight.
Swick, yeah.
Yeah, he started at light heavyweight, went down, and I remember he just started picking up, and then he had like UFC would do like real quick with Mike Swick on UFC.com, and then like he had a bunch of health issues, and just from there just never could pick up the consistency. Like would have some spots on like UFC Fox shows occasionally, but yeah, just I think it was health stuff if memory serves. Does that sound familiar, Brad?
It does. I think there's a fight. No, it wouldn't be after this. It would have been before this. But when he fought Yushin Okami, if he won that, he was going to get a shot at the title, I think.
That's right. Wow, I remember that now. Damn, Dan looking just young and
swole.
Yeah. There's no gray in that goatee at all. I mean, it is pure sports fan.
That's the no stress of watching people slowly die in the octagon in front of you.
Yeah. Realizing it's a crazy fucking thing.
And where are you at in the fight?
441, 440, 439. Okay. Yeah, they're exchanging. Oh, left hand already by Swick. Wow, dropped him. Follow up. Goulet on a single.
Oof.
Just got stuck on a single. Oh. Those were some brutal ones. I haven't seen one of those in a while, Brad, where a guy gets kind of like stuck on the single leg. He gets like punch frozen on the single leg.
Clean.
Yeah.
Wow. Usually it's like the side of the head shots, but Zwick was actually that, folks, is kind of the story of Jonathan Goulet's career.
Very well respected, anybody who talked or trained with him, but the chin just unfortunately, was his worst enemy.
Yep.
Talented guy by all accounts too, pioneer, rounded.
Yeah, so just the quick look at his record kind of tells the story. He was 23-12 with 23-12 with a no contest in his career, and 10 of the 12 were by knockout.
Absolutely. And if you want to see a longer Jonathan Goulet fight, that was actually good, go queue up him versus Jay Haran. It's one of the most bloodiest UFC fights, speaking of violence, by the way. And you know how I was joking with Dana, he's probably talking to an advertiser over there because this is the era. There is actually a story that Dana tells himself of talking about how, this day and age, the advertisers were important. And when they had these violent cards, they actually got worried because the whole reason why they had them there, you got to think about the time period, right? They're trying to tell the public that this isn't brutal cockfighting. And every time they got these like big sponsors to show up, it would be like the most violent card. And it was one of those situations where they had a really big deal with a sponsor, especially this is like back in like 05 or 06, this Haran Goulet fight. And he just remembers just eating his own, his own tie, like pretty much like going, it was just, the sponsors were horrified with how much blood was happening between Goulet and Haran. Sorry, I just had to share that.
Well, that was also like I just clicked onto. I didn't remember this off the top of my head, folks.
Okay,
I
don't
good. Have that.
It's an obscure call out. It's an obscure call out. Yeah, it's an obscure.
But I clicked into that card, which was Fight Night 2, and that was the main event of that one was David Loiseau and Evan Tanner.
Oh wow!
And I'm not sure if you remember Evan Tanner's face at the end of that fight, but he had a few of them where he wasn't looking so great by the end of the fight because it was so quick. But
and my TV just froze, so keep it rolling, Brad. I should be back with you guys by the main event. We're gonna keep this rolling, baby. But yeah, that we didn't get the chance to talk about that fight too much.
Yeah, that's kind of where Mike Swick's nickname came from. Is he wants a pretty obscure Mike Swick call out. I think I'm trying to remember correctly, but he had a couple good battles back in the WEC days that you can now see on Fight Pass. But Chris Lieben and Mike Swick back in the WEC, that's one worth looking at.
Oh wow, that's a great. I forgot about that fight. That was the one I just remember hearing about after, because I was a tough noob, so I had to go back to watch that one. But yeah, no, that's a great shout. Are they? I imagine they're going to do a setup piece for the main event, right? Because there's only one fight left, folks. For those of you hanging with us, we appreciate it. Hopefully, this edited version is much smoother than the recorded version. And hopefully, this doesn't happen to me with my TV. I gotta go to brand new. I know people are gonna hate me. Like, damn, why'd you go Samsung again? Listen, they got the ESPN app and they got the UFC app. Whereas LG, which I love, I've got a nice C2 OLED in my room. It's great for movies, but they still don't have the ESPN or the Fight Pass apps somehow native.
So I'm on an LG right now, and I'm on the UFC app.
Okay,
so
maybe they changed that part. Okay.
Store,
okay.
But, it doesn't come prepackaged on the app. They are showing quite a few Yoshiyuka Yoshida throws, and they've repeatedly shown his one Anaconda
Josh
that we
Copenhaver,
finished
War
with.
Machine at UFC 84 that we already mentioned, correct? UFC, oh, will. I know BJ Penn cards very well. I can name all the cards from all the fights that happened on them, and I own them on DVD. Sorry. Of course, I know. It's terrible. Ill Will was a sick card, you know. I mean, I feel like such a non-Chad going to the weigh-ins because I'm such a cheapskate and I couldn't afford tickets. But I remember going to the weigh-ins, getting a picture with Joey Joe Lozon. That was good. There was a Tito Dana is my bitch weigh-in, that classic. Again, parallels to the WWE, right, with Vince McMahon and feuding with the fighters. UFC has a ton of parallels to the pro wrestling, folks, and I'm not even a big pro wrestling guy, and I can pull them out. Where are they at right now, Brad? What time are you on your roll?
I've got Yoshida walking out. It is 131.45.
Cool. I'm around the corner. I'm in the 120s, coming around the corner here. 131, you said?
Yep.
Cool.
It'll be 132 when Yoshida's getting in the cage.
Cool. I'm at 132.40, and I'll wait for you. He's getting in the cage now? Where are you at?
I will let you know. I'm at 132 exactly.
Okay. I'm at 132.41. He's getting ready to go into the cage. He's just doing the bounce.
I'll give you the heads up. But in the next 20 seconds, for those who don't know about Yoshiyuki Yoshida, he came through the GCM Greatest Common Multiple promotion, which was one of the few promotions in Japan at the time that actually used a cage.
Yeah.
So
great show.
Everyone thought that was a little bit more of an advantage to those Japanese fighters, and I'm at 132, 36, 7, 8, 9, 40.
All right, we're synced up then. Yep, just doing a little shake, a little shake, a little shake.
What a segue.
And now he's in. It's like he knew what was coming, spoiler alert. All right, Condom Depot on the shorts, baby. Here we go. Oh, man. I recognize that Japanese guy in his corner. He does a lot of the, for a lot of the Japanese fight, like Takea and like, I don't know, he would do translation for a lot of those guys. What team was he a part of? Oh. But yeah, this was a very classic era, right? Like, again, like Condit had his own fights like these in the WEC at welterweight, right? Against the judo boxer guy. He was a judoka, but they learned boxing for MMA and they ended up being bangers, for better or worse, right?
The greatest of which, Sexyama, Yoshihiro Akiyama.
Oh, yeah, he was great. Yep.
Which, big Netflix guy. But Physical 100 on Netflix is a cool show, and basically the Sexyama show. So
I wanted to watch it just for a Sexyama, so I imagine
that. You know what? It was one of those things that, like, my wife watches stuff on Netflix, and she just like was flipping through stuff, and now they autoplay the trailers, and it showed one of the challenges that they do, and I was like, wait, hold up, was that Sexyama? And she went back to it, and it was like, that is Sexyama. So then we ended up watching it, and
that's great.
It was worth it, and still the coolest man on the planet.
That is fantastic. Yeah. Greasing allegations be damned, right? That's a normal bingo card in MMA.
It was cocoa butter.
That's right.
I mean, you don't get the skin like that without the cocoa butter. Dan.
Oh no, no,
come on,
no, the sexiness, baby. By the way, we got Josh Taschuk here, another tough one, alum. So again, UFC really knows that they hit home with tough. They weren't bullshitting. It's not just the Zuffa myths. The tough one was a big deal for the UFC, and they treated it as such. They tried to give these guys good spots.
Mike Swick had such an easy fight that he's out there.
I look up and I just see his face as you're saying that. I'm like, what the? Yeah, why not, right? Yeah, I mean, it's AKA, baby. I mean, they were fighting for their practices, so this was just another day of practice for them.
Also, if you guys want the craziest AKA throwback, I believe it's UFC 24. Crazy Bob Cook against Tiki. They actually put on an absolute banger. of a fight, especially considering that it was like 2000 or whenever that fight happened.
It was surprisingly good. It was surprisingly good. Like, you could see why Bob Cook ended up being more of a coach, because he had the right ideas. You just knew his size and athleticism wasn't going to take him very far, but he had all the right ideas.
So go watch that if you're looking for something to watch. But UFC 24, Bob Cook, Tiki.
It's anyway. Great shout. By the way, this is a Josh Koscheck era where he was already established, where he made his striking turn. He was the wrestling guy, the heel, right, coming off the show. But I believe it was UFC, I want to say 76, that Rampage versus Forrest Griffin pay-per-view, where Forrest Griffin takes the title via leg kicks. I want to say that was Chris Lytle versus Josh Koscheck on that very same card, and that was one of the coming out parties for the striking version of Koscheck. You know what I'm talking about? As far as that iteration, come out to the Red Hot Chili Peppers and was just like, he totally forgot about his wrestling and was just striking. And this is the era that now he is in now. You saw this trend about a year before this in 2007, and now he's kind of firmly in this, I'm striking Josh Koscheck. Does that sound accurate, Brad? Or
I'm going to say that it was 86, not 76.
Okay,
he fought GSP at 74. And
that makes sense.
got out-wrestled to high heaven, and then decided that he needed to learn how to do something else. But other than that, absolutely correct. We got the intros happening.
I remember walking around, man.
Josh Koscheck, because there's nothing more fight for the troops than sending an American in there to beat a non-white fella brutally.
Yeah, especially an Asian person. There's not going to be too much sympathy for Yoshida, and I say that for anyone getting upset at that, I am Japanese and Asian for what it's worth, folks. I'm just saying what it is. They don't really. They put him there again. They set up back to what I said. They set up the tough fighters very well, right, Brad?
Yes, there was a time when they knew how to build a fighter.
Yeah. And, you know, again, say what you will about their motives, but at least that involved building a fighter, something they don't really do, much less promote fighters these days.
Yep.
It's the brand, baby. It's the brand.
You've got to have, like, the brand is one thing, and I know they've found their floor with the UFC brand. But if you want more people than that to tune in, you got to have something that they want to watch, and you got to build fighters to do that.
Absolutely.
But anyways, through the first minute, we haven't seen much other than sort of range-finding little high kick look there from Yoshida. But
I forgot Yoshida was a southpaw. I wonder if Koscheck is having Drew Fickett flashbacks. Of course, you talk about knee knockouts that were meant as kicks like Aljo and Marlon Moraes. Koscheck Fickett was one of the first ones in the UFC like that.
Yeah.
But again, Koscheck since got his striking better, and we're seeing now the more confident version of Josh Koscheck here in 2008.
Yes. Comfortable.
Yes. Underrated, I dare say, because everybody kind of wrote him off as just like just an asshole, but he put on some fun fights in this era, I will say.
Yep. Landed a decent right hand there.
Yep.
And sort of threw the first one and threw the second one as a follow-up once Yoshida was back against the cage and actually landed it. But clip coming in too. And that was his punch, obviously.
I could totally see why you got excited. Why people would get excited though at the same time for Koscheck. You know, you got a really good athlete, really great wrestling pedigree. Was a good age at this time.
Yep.
I mean, the possibilities in a way were almost endless, and if you put yourself in that mindset of 08. Oh, bad right. He's already out on his feet on the first one, and the second one he was stiff. He was done on the first one. And now he is out, like astral traveling, as Joe Rogan would say. Like, he did the stiff arm, where the arms went stiff, and the eyes rolled up back to the head, and he's just gone. He's gone.
His eyes are both still in separate directions.
This is one of the most brutal. I mean, I remember at the time, like, MMA fans are really ignorant to what standing stoppages are or should be, right, Brad? But even at this time, as ignorant as I was, I knew that he was out on the feet. He's just gone. He doesn't even see the second punch coming. There's no reaction to it.
The only reason that he didn't fall over because of the first punch is because he bounced off the cage.
Yeah, there's that too, yes. He's in like this weird like negative space, like purgatory, until Koscheck hits him again. It's brutal.
You almost have to go back to like, I don't know, Pedro Hizzo, Josh Barnett to find something like that where the guy's out on his feet and then eats another one clean.
Yeah, and I know this was already a violent card, and we've all seen a lot of knockouts. I imagine you all listening, and a knockout from a big right hand on paper should sound the least surprising, right, Brad? But that being said, for right hand knockouts, that's a pretty bad one, right? We're not just playing it up. Like this is a pretty bad one as far as your standard right hand overhand right knockout goes.
Yeah, eats the shot clean, already compromised. No, like nothing stopping him from falling to the ground. And as Dan mentioned earlier, you've got another guy that doesn't show up for the the winner's hand, which is not a good sign.
It's like at least like 4 today. Usually you get like maybe one of those a card, Brad. We've had 4, and we've only watched 75% of this card. And these cards aren't as big as the cards that they build out now, by the way, like 14, 15 deep. We watched 75% of like a 10-fight card, and we have more injuries.
The worst part is like it looks like he's kind of looking at him.
Yes.
But that's just the way his head's pointed.
Because there's no reaction to the punch. There's none. He's just looking at nothing. It looks like, it looks like he could be looking at something, but you're like, oh, he didn't see any of that.
Nope.
I love when they cut back. Taschuk was like walking Yamasaki through the stoppage and showing him the part that he exactly hit him in. I'm like, I love that the fighter has more wherewithal than the ref of what just happened. That's great.
Yeah.
And they're playing the credits, of course.
Do the credits. Where we don't get this anymore. Where well, maybe we do. I don't watch until as soon as the last fight's done. Yeah. I'm out of there. I turn it off. Not watching anymore. But I used to love this little recap at the end of every card where you got the highlights.
Yeah, we were even singing along to it the last time. At least my dumbass was, and I'll spare you guys for that here. But yeah, I love it. But now they have ESPN Plus post shows and a bunch of other shoulder programming they have to run right into. So it's almost like they don't even have time for the montages anymore.
Yeah. But
wow, that was fun. Man, all right.
Good card. I mean, fun card. I don't want to say good card.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a fun card.
This would be one of the ones that, like, looking back on it after the fact, that people will be like, oh, that's a great card. But, like, was it?
Right, yeah. I don't think it was a great card. I will say it didn't disappoint any. It wasn't one of those things where, like, okay, my memory held it higher than it was. So I will say that. I will leave the door open for more violent cards, Brad, because we're going to keep doing this. But I will say this was a pretty damn violent card. I think this, I could comfortably say this should probably hold up in a top 5, at the very least a top 10 that anybody could pull up.
Yeah, I think it's up there.
As far as just like percentage and injuries, I mean, again, it wasn't as big of a card. It was, 10 to 12 fights as opposed to the 14 to 15. We watched maybe 3/4, if that, probably less. And we still had, 3 broken bones officially, 3 to 4 no losers, even in condition to raise their hand at the end. Not bad, I'd say.
That's up there. I think the card that followed this one up, the big pay-per-view to end the year, as Dan and I said, we used to do those. UFC 92 ended up being pretty damn violent. But given the time period, the fighters involved, I struggle to think of too many cards that would hold up to that level of violence.
Yeah, I mean, even you said so yourself. I didn't even catch that. It was in the Wikipedia recap. You said that there was an unusual amount of injuries on this card. They even note that in the recap. Yeah. That was a pretty cool tidbit there. Right on. Well, we'll try to do, Brad. We'll try to get out of 2008. How about that? We'll make it a goal. Regardless of what we do, we won't do anything in 2008 for the next card. We'll give you a break from that year. But if you guys want to get a jump on the suggestions, hit me up in the comment section. This video version is going to be on YouTube. You guys, of course, can reach the pod at the PYM Podcast or me at Dan Tom MMA if you're listening on audio. But Brad, does that sound like a good goal? We'll just we'll see what suggestions we get, but we'll definitely change things up for the next one.
It doesn't have to be after 2008 either. It could be before.
Yeah, we can go way back.
Doesn't have to be UFC. We're we're on the old Fight Pass machine.
Yep.
It could be something outside of UFC. So
go Bushido 9 if you guys want to get crazy. Who knows?
Ooh, although that event's like 4.5 hours.
Yeah,
it?
maybe not that one. Yeah, we'll see what the cut down version is. Yeah, we gotta choose carefully there, folks. But we'll definitely hit you with some. We'll spread out the variety, I think is what Brad's trying to say, right?
Absolutely. We'll find something for you guys that's entertaining as the other few have been, and we'll be back with you with another one of these because I love watching these old cards. It's a blast. And it's even better doing it with Dan.
Oh, well, I appreciate you joining me, Brad. It gives us something like us old jaded curmudgeon fucks kind of curse words there. Since I always put the explicit anyways. It gives us something to kind of have fun with. So hopefully you guys are having fun with this too. Feedback, suggestions, always welcome. Again, hit me up at Dan Tom MMA. My guy, Brad Taschuk here, at Brad Taschuk if you want to bother him on the Twitter machine. But go support his podcast, man. The MMA Analysis, of course. I don't want to timestamp it too much to say which betting networks you're with, but you guys deserve love on whatever platforms are smart enough to grab you guys up. So, Brad, anything else you want to say before we get out of here?
I think all of us are having terrible enough betting years thus far this year that nobody is supporting us. But that's what happens in this game. When you do it long enough, you're going to have a shit run. So I think in this last minute or so, we upped the curse words from, I think we only up at like 3 for the entire
we
stream,
did pretty good.
Which is great for us.
Did pretty good for us, I'd say.
Yeah, we kept it tame on this one. I don't know if it's tomorrow's a work day for me or what's going on, but we still had some fun. And as Dan said, if you've got any suggestions for the next one that we're going to do, hit us up. We are open to pretty much any and all MMA. We just want to make sure that it's accessible to the masses if they want to tune in.
Yeah, or accessible to like my crappy TV, which I'm going to look into. This is crazy. I'm hoping it's a connection problem because we'll see. I just upgraded some equipment in here. So either way, it's going to keep getting better. So thank you guys. Thank you, Brad, for joining me. It was a long sports day, a nice long Memorial Day weekend. We're ending it on a high note. And all right, guys. So you guys enjoy yourself. And until next time, and as always, protect your neck.